Afterwards, I ended up at a different kind of doctor's, but not at first. At first, I went ballistic at home. All that I'd been holding in came pouring out, and I was a long way from silent. Pop and I fought almost every night, nearly coming to blows on a couple occasions. I'd cost him his cool, and there was something satisfying in that. Something small, though, I had to admit. Eventually, I cooled down and cursed him quietly, letting him know through silence that I hated him. I blamed Pop for everything that happened. It had sort of come to me slowly over the summer, and then through the school year, and in the silence of my room, then in a rush as I sat there bleeding in the garage. The words I couldn't find came out in anger towards Pop. I figured if I hadn't gone along with his helping people routine, if I hadn't listened to him and been his son, if I hadn't put so much faith in him and in doing the right thing, and told him the truth about the Spicks and the bridge, I'd still be back in the old neighborhood with my old friends and Jeannie Martini with her great set of lungs. Instead of being alone in the attic, attending All Saints School for Torture, where there were no girls and not a friend in the world, I'd finally figured out what was bothering me, what had been taken away. And the fact of it was this: Pop had cost me my chance at being a kid. Not a runny-nosed kid with untied shoes, but a real kid that did all the things I'd been doing, with girls and friends and whatnot, until Pop and his philosophy of doing the right thing took it all away. My mother was in the middle. Pop railed at her that I needed to get straightened out, but she worried about her son. Usually, growing up, she was the tough one. But with this noise between me and Pop, she tried to stay calm, begging me to behave before Pop did something crazy like toss me out of the house. I think the counseling was her idea. I fought it, of course. No way, But they gave me two choices: the psychologist or military school. And while the idea of going away was tempting, it wasn't going to be someplace with all guys, where you get your head shaved at night and your face chewed off all day. I'd rather stay at home with Pop and the nuns, so I passed on the drill sergeant and took the head doctor instead. Not a bad guy, this Dr. Diffuso. His house off Queens Boulevard had an office around the side. It was very brown in there, with slanted shades and a wooden desk and lots of books on shelves. We sat across from each other in cushioned chairs, and he held a notepad and pen across his thighs. He asked me little questions that were supposed to have answers worth writing down. At first, I hardly said anything. But then I started giving him something to put on his pad. Nothing monumental or nothing, but enough to keep me out of another crew cut. This guy Diffuso was no miracle worker, but talking to him once a week for a few months made things easier at home. Pop and I still had our moments. We had our peace for the most part, too. And the best thing about going to the shrink was his suggestion that boarding school might be good for me. He talked to my parents, and one night they came up to my room with these brochures with pictures of nice-looking kids studying and playing sports, posing with their arms around each other's shoulders. It seemed so safe, so easy. I remember holding the brochures and thinking, yeah, I can do this. So we went out for a visit, took the car straight across Jersey, past fields and rolling hills, exit signs for towns called Burg or Ville. We glided down a winding road into a half-assed place called Hamdenville. Past town, we went through a high gate and up a higher hill into the campus of Hamden Academy. Ivy covered the stone and brick buildings, and tall trees shaded the road. The air smelled new. Some happy kid named Brian gave us a tour. And more than anything, I remember him saying hi or hello to a lot of people we passed. Hi, Scott. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Karen. Hello, Mr. Taylor. I wondered which ones would be my teachers, my friends. When we went into the underclass dorm on the floor for juniors, I picked out a room that I hoped would be mine. There were some meetings with admissions people and a guidance guy. I met the baseball coach, too. But my mind was made up before any of them even opened their mouths. On the ride home to Queens, I fell asleep and dreamed of myself somewhere else. Third year. That next year, on my first day of school at Hamden Academy, I walked around like I already belonged. I didn't really know where I was going or anything, but it felt like I did. It must have been all the time I spent that summer imagining myself there. And once there, for real, I liked it right away. These private school kids got it made, I decided, walking under the high ceiling of the academic building amongst all the fresh faces. One face, in particular, stood out right away. I remember seeing her from across a classroom, deep auburn hair and a freckled nose, eyes that glowed green. Her eyebrows were the color of caramel. Her mouth was wide, and I could tell, easy to make smile. There wasn't this magical soundtrack playing or anything, and she didn't cruise up like the vision of Venus on a clamshell painting they had at the Catholic school. But the sight of this girl was like a miracle to me, I swear. I gave her a nickname on the spot, Bella Faccia, for her beautiful face. Each day I moved closer and closer, row by row, desk by desk. I felt like a secret agent. After a week, I settled in right next to her. I sat up straight, caught my breath, and started to think of something clever to say. When I turned to deliver, she was staring right at me. "So," she said, "you finally made it." I almost fell over. Through class, I tried and tried and tried to keep my head straight ahead, but couldn't help but sneak 1,000 peeks. Afterwards, on the way to next period, I worked a little routine I had used for charming the girls back in Queens. "So," I began, "tell me your name." "Brenda Devine," she said. "Where are you from, Brenda Devine?" "Connecticut." "Do you like it here?" "Yes." "Oh, did you like it there?" Excuse me. "Yes," she said. "Do you like it here?" I asked. "So far," she said. "Do you like me so far?" I asked, and she laughed. "Who's your favorite singer?" I had to know. "Prince," she said. "What about Bruce Springsteen?" I asked. She said, "Well, I only like the song Thunder Road, but I've listened to it like 1,000 times, and that was good enough for me." "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I asked. She said, "A doctor or a teacher." "Where do you want to go to school?" "NYU." "All right, who's your favorite player on the Mets?" She passed on that one. "All right," I said, "one last question." I was leaning into the door frame of her next class. "Okay," she giggled again, hugging her books. "What are we doing Saturday night?" And she smiled, but there was this eking thing with her mouth that cut that grin in half. "Well, actually," she said, "I'm taking the bus to meet my parents in the city, and my boyfriend's coming too." "Oh!" I cried for the boyfriend bomb, but still managed to keep my cool. "Can I come too?" I asked. "I'm from the city. I could show you around." "Maybe some other time," she laughed and walked into class. She had a bouncy step, and her right foot pigeon-toed a little, giving the impression that she might be clumsy or something, but she wasn't. I watched her skinny legs moving in fresh blue jeans. As she turned to slip into the seat, I envied the fuzzy sweater that hugged her slender body. Once seated, she tilted her head toward the doorway, blinked a few times, then smiled at me with surprise. "Hey, how about next Saturday?" I asked. "You free then?" There was something in her dimpled smile, something I didn't know for sure, except that it was something I needed more than anything in the whole world, I swear.